Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. Emerson. Yesterday I made a video about progress. I didn't post it, I filmed it, I scripted it, I wrote it, etc. And I filmed the video on camera, but I didn't post it. And it's a funny story because the video, generally speaking, is about how making progress in something isn't as fun and rosy as all the productivity YouTubers, Ali Abdaal, Alex Hormozi, Chris Williamson, at least Chris Williamson back in the day, less so now, Mel Robbins. And all of these YouTubers are great, and I know their names because I listen to their content, and it's good. But I think in the process of putting out that content and making a video and making it entertaining, they come up with this idea that you romanticize the process. Mel Robbins, not so much. I think she's better at telling you the truth. And I think it's, at least when you're working on something, let's say if you want to start a business or start working out or you're applying for new jobs, there's this kind of romantic idea of today's the day I'm going to get started. And you have that excitement at the beginning. At the end, when you achieve your goal, it's I achieved something and I feel proud that I kept a commitment that I made to myself. And that's rewarding. But there's that messy middle bit. And messy middle is a really good description of what progress feels like. Because the reality is when you're working on these things, especially on the mundane days where, say you're starting a business, you have to write contracts, you have to send out emails, you have to write fee proposals, and you have to negotiate, and things go wrong, and it's a stressful day, especially if it's a side hustle. Or you're applying for jobs and you got your 368th rejection letter, generic rejection letter from a recruiter, and those are just the ones that bothered to reply. Or you're working out and your nutrition and workout program is on point, but as the program says that you should be increasing, you're not. You've plateaued in a certain area and you're just like, what's the point? Or you look in the mirror every morning just wondering where the hell your abs are at. It's in those moments that, in my opinion, progress is made. And I think sometimes we have to shift our idea as to what we're measuring as progress. For example, let's say you start a YouTube channel and you want your followers to go up. The number of followers, in my opinion, isn't the progress. The progress is how many videos you upload, how long it takes you to script. Are you getting better at scripting? Are you getting more comfortable in front of the camera? Are you saying less? To me, I think that's better measurement of progress, especially in the days where you can't be bothered, especially in the days where your subscriber rate number hasn't risen in 3 months, but you're still pumping out videos and you're just like, why the hell am I doing this? There are some days where I can't be bothered, and there are some days where I plan to do something and just the sheer inertia kicks in and I cannot move my ass to save my life. I think it's in those moments where progress is made, because if you have that feeling and you do the thing anyway, you're building resilience, you're finding ways to move forward, you're doing what you can with the energy you have that day, because I don't think progress requires 100% of your effort every single day, but it does require you to show up. You need to show your ass up every day. And you might be working on multiple things. You might have a part-time job and you're doing things on the side. You might have children. You might have responsibilities, elderly parents to take care of. There are multiple areas in your life that you you need to make progress in. But as long as you've defined them and those things are what you want, on those tough days where you still show up and put in the amount that you can that day, I think that's where progress is really defined. And another thing I've been thinking about recently, and this is something I really had to battle with, especially when I was making architecture content. Now, I might still go back to doing that, but that's besides the point. That's not what this channel was about. It was the idea of perfectionism. Now, when you want to start something, obviously there are people you're looking up to and products and schemes and ideas that you want to live up to. You're looking at the biggest YouTubers or the biggest businesses and you're like, how the hell do I climb that mountain? How the hell do I put up a product or a service or a video like that? How the hell do I compete? And I think it's really important to remember that perfection isn't the answer. If anything, perfection is going to hinder you. The idea that you have to put out something perfect, especially when you're new, is absurd, and it's just not going to happen. All you'll find is disappointment and discouragement. Instead, I look at it as I'm going to put out the best thing I can with the energy I have, with the resources I have today, and put in as much effort as physically possible that day. Put it out into the ether, and then try to do better next time. And I think in the context of measuring progress, it's not about whether you're the best. It's about raising your minimum standard in relation to minimal effort. If it takes this much effort to produce a video this quality, progress is making it this much effort to produce a video of this quality, which means that in a few months or a few years, when you've been doing this, whatever it is that you're doing for a while, this same amount of effort could produce a video of this quality, because you have just done it enough times that you don't have that resistance. You don't have to battle with that self-doubt. You don't have to battle with that perfectionism. All you know is that you're slowly improving and you're getting better and more efficient, because how can you not? If you do something over and over again, that's going to happen no matter who you are. That's how this works. And I think that's a way better measure. And even yesterday, when I did film this video the first time, ironically, it's in the video, I tried to get it a certain way. I tried to essentially roughly read off my script that I wrote, because I wanted these videos to be a bit more organized. I think the last few was a bit of a long train of thought. It wasn't structured. So I wanted it to be structured. And then in doing so, I then fell into the trap of this video needs to be a particular way, as opposed to just free flowing, which is the thing that I'm comfortable doing. And so I had to refilm this video again today so I can get back to it, so I can make the correct progress, because this is how I want to film these videos today. I just want to get better at it. So yeah, progress is way slower than we think. And the biggest win and the biggest amount of grace you can give ourselves is to let go of the idea of things have to be a certain way by a certain time. Because quite frankly, there's a a saying within construction, and I work in the construction industry. There's saying within construction, every product is within a triangle, and in that triangle, each point is time, quality, and cost. And we tell every client, you can only have two of those things. If you want something to be quick and cost effective, then the quality is going to dip. If you want something to have high quality and cost effective, it's going to take more time. You want something to be high quality and quick, it's going to cost you more money. And you have to decide in which area you can sacrifice in this moment. If you try to hit all three, you're going to drive yourself crazy. More importantly, you won't produce as much, and therefore you are ultimately making less progress. Because progress is not necessarily how hard we work or how much effort we put into something, it's how much output we can do. And this is not a productivity hustle culture hack, as in produce more, output more, post more, blah 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 blah. It's making steady progress with the energy you have, because your life isn't going to look like the life of the person you're comparing yourself to, who you're aspiring to be like. For example, if I'm comparing this podcast to Diary of a CEO, who was literally started by a millionaire because he was bored, and then when it picked up traction, the podcast itself wasn't making the amount of money that set required, but he had the money and the resources to put into it, so he can make it look professional relatively quickly. You and I ain't got that. Okay, so we can only start where we are. Like I said, yesterday I tried to make this a thing, versus today my energy is slightly higher despite it being 10 o'clock. I'm filming this in a more natural way, and I'm saying way less than I used to. I remember my first video in this podcast series, the amount of I had to cut out in the edit. I mean, feel free to go back and watch it. You're going to see cuts after cuts. It's just so many cuts. And I hope this video has a lot less cuts. So yeah, it's not always going to be fun. It's going to take way longer than you think it's going to take. And there are some days where you can't be fucked. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. But on all those days where you show up and you put in as much effort as you can that day, you are making progress. Even if it doesn't feel like it, even if your business hasn't scaled to the level you want, even if you haven't got the number of followers you want, even if your bench isn't increasing as quickly as you expected it to. And that bench one really hits home. I think I was stuck on a 100-kilo bench for a year and a half. And I was going to the gym like 5 times a week, and it just wasn't moving. What did I change? I might have changed the rep range. Yeah, I think I was doing somewhere around 8, and then I dropped it to 3 to 5. And yeah, boom, shut up. That's another thing. You need to iterate, and you need to iterate with your process as well as iterate with your energy. For some reason, I find filming these videos later at night more natural for me, as opposed to, I've tried filming this in the morning, I've tried filming this in the afternoon, so I can then start editing it immediately. And none of those videos really came out the way I wanted. I didn't feel natural in them, versus when it's late and I've just come back from the gym. Maybe it's a gym thing that does it. I've just come back from the gym and I know that this is more or less the last thing I'm going to do today. Yeah, it flows a lot better. And that's the iteration I'm learning along this process. Within progress, you learn more about yourself, you learn more about how you work, you learn where you get frustrated, the things you don't want to do. And as your life expands and as you reach your goals, you can start to find other ways to achieve those things. I know at some point I'm going to have to start, if I do want this to be a thing, I'm going to have to start social media marketing. I hate it. I don't like it. It feels like, at least at the time when I was doing it, and it could be because I was doing it for the wrong reasons back then, but it felt like I was coming up with ideas to make content as opposed to making content because I have ideas and things to say. Versus now when I post these videos, it's because I generally have things to say. And like I've said in previous videos, everything I'm telling this camera is things I'm just telling to myself. Sometimes we need to remind ourselves. You know, it's really easy to give other people advice, but when it comes to following that advice ourselves, it's different. We're complicated. No, my problem's special. It's because you're in your own head. Realistically, the simple advice is usually the right one. That's why we have cliches. It's what it is. Ironically, when I was writing the script for this video, I was in a cafe. Really nice cafe, good vibes. I can't remember what it was called, but it was in the city centre of Bristol. And I was sat by a window, and I was literally staring at a tree. And I was like, oh, that tree is a good analogy for what progress feels like. So let's say you're a tree. And every year you go through all the seasons. So spring comes around and you're sprouting little leaves. And they're starting to grow, but they're growing quite slowly. Eventually you get to summer and all your leaves are full and your branches are luscious and green and providing shade for all the people around you. But you're still a small tree. Autumn comes around and those leaves that you work so hard to get and you waited so long to bloom to fruition start to turn yellow and orange and fall on the ground, and they're getting in people's way and they're blowing in the wind. And if you were a tree, all of your failures of you not holding on to your leaves are just out for everyone to see. Then winter comes around, it's a cold winter, and you ain't got any leaves, and your branches are barren, but you don't give up. So spring comes around again, and you grow new leaves, and summer comes around, and those leaves are luscious and green, and autumn comes around, they fall off, winter comes around, you're barren, and in that, low point. And then every year, it just keeps happening. You get to, I don't know how long do trees take to grow, hundreds of years, really. Let's say if you get to year 15 or 20 and you're just like, I've been doing the same thing for 20 years and I'm not seeing any progress. I literally just keep growing leaves to lose them every year. This is ridiculous. How can anyone say I'm making progress? But you're you, so you can only see it from your perspective. If you step out of yourself and you take a wider view, you would notice that your roots have expanded and absorbing more water. Your trunk is wider and stronger, making you more stable and more resilient. The number of leaves that you grow every spring increase. So when it comes to summer, your branches are wide and you have a wide reach, and you're casting a massive shadow over everyone. And even then, when autumn comes around and all your leaves fall off, and winter comes around and you're barren and you have no leaves, you're still a massive tree stood in front of someone, carving the path for them to follow. Because even in your failures, if you think that life is always going to go your way and you're never going to have ups and downs, I promise you your ass is wrong. It's going to have downs. Even in this progress, even as you're growing your business or growing your channel or trying to achieve something, even as you reach new levels of success, your baseline of feeling like you're not making progress is still going to be way further away than when you started. And that's what progress feels like. So yeah, take solace in the fact that you may not have all the things you want right now, or you may not be making the progress you want at the rate you want right now, but you are improving, you are growing as a person, you are becoming more resilient, you are getting used to doing all the boring administrative work and being more efficient at it because you don't like doing it and therefore you want to do it quicker. Sure, you don't have as many followers as Stephen Bartlett and Diary of a CEO, but you probably have more followers now than you did when you started, and that's what it is. That's what progress feels like. I do think you need to find joy in the process, and ideally if you are aiming towards something, it's something you want and therefore you find joy in it. But not every day in the pursuit of that thing you want is going to be fun. Some days are just going to fucking suck, and on those tough days get the win, because the alternative is that you can feel like shit that day and not get anything done because you didn't feel like it, and then go to bed knowing full well that you didn't get anything done because you feel like it. Or you can do what you can and go to bed maybe not as ecstatic at the amount of progress you made that day, but at least you showed up today. Because on those days where you show up that you don't want to is where you're deciding to be the person that does the thing. The world is full of people that don't do the thing, full of people that talk about the thing, me included. Okay, there are multiple goals that, I don't know if this is true actually, there are multiple goals that, at least when I was younger, I thought I would start, I thought I would achieve, and I gave a crack at them. I wasn't the person that could have stuck it out. I didn't know what I didn't know. There was an amount of experience that maybe I didn't need it, but now that I have, is helpful. I'm now in a place of my life that I wasn't back then, which provides me with more time and space and energy. I have way more mental clarity now than I did 2 years ago. Yeah, progress doesn't look like what you think it's going to look like. Let's go with that. Progress isn't going to look like what you think it's going to look like, but it's still happening. And you don't get to choose the lessons you learn when you're having a shit day or when you're going through a tough season. But there are lessons in there, and they're only for you because you're experiencing them. They can't be my lessons. They can't be somebody else's lessons. These are only your lessons, and they're specifically designed for you because all the choices you made brought you to that point where you needed to learn that lesson. That's life. And it's not fun. But if we accept it's not fun, I think it was Mark Manson that says,
the pursuit of a positive experience is itself a negative experience, and the acceptance of a negative experience is itself a positive experience. I think what a lot of people get in trouble with is they are so fixated on pursuing positive experiences that they actually make themselves miserable because they're constantly reinforcing and reminding themselves of everything they don't have. So much of the modern world is geared and optimized around pursuing the thing you want. If you want a degree, here are the steps to go get it. If you want to build a business, here are the steps to go get it. That works for everything in life except for our own internal state. If I decide I want to be happy, okay, what are the steps to happiness? I'm making myself miserable. Just by thinking about that, I am actively making myself miserable. When it comes to our internal states, everything is backwards. If you want to be happy, then don't chase happiness. If you want to stop being sad, let yourself be sad.
If you're having a tough day or you're going through a tough season in life, accepting that that's where you are and then doing your best that day is going to get you out of that season, one, with more grace towards yourself, accepting that you're human and you're not perfect and it's not always going to go your way. Two, because you've accepted it, then you can start to look for the little pieces of joy in between on your way to getting out that season. And I think more importantly, when eventually you do get out that season, and if you are making progress and trying every day, then you are making progress, eventually you will come out of that season. You're not going to have this, at least it's what I believe, you're not going to have this imposter syndrome when you reach the goal, because you know you earned that shit. It's in a game. You worked hard. You showed up on those tough days. You did the hard thing. You had the hard conversation. You wrote that boring contract and posted that video when you didn't want to. And now you're winning. And you're getting W's because you earned that shit. That's the feeling you want. Sure, yeah, you can go on the internet and say "Huck to it," and then suddenly you're a millionaire. But you're always going to feel like they're going to catch you out. At least I imagine. I'm sure most people have felt imposter syndrome, and if you haven't, good for you. But yeah, the times where I felt imposter syndrome were the times where I thought I didn't deserve to be there, or I got lucky, or they're gonna find me out, but they just haven't yet. I was just really good at an interview or something. Versus everything that I'm gonna get now. Yeah, I'm gonna earn that shit. I did earn that shit, and hopefully something's coming soon. Fingers crossed. There you go. Touch wood. Something coming soon where, when I do achieve one of my many ambitions, I'm going to feel like, cool, I can now cross that off the list and on to the next one. I'm not going to feel like, oh, I have to maintain this and I have to make sure, yes, I have to make sure I do a good job and make sure the client is happy. But yeah, I know that I achieved that and I won that work and I got that job because I put in the work and the effort and the days where I didn't want to write and script and pitch and talk. I still did. So then I can celebrate in the fact that I earned it. And that's a good feeling. And it will extrapolate to multiple areas of your life, because multiple areas of your life won't go your way. But you now know how to be resilient. You now know that seasons don't last forever. You know that progress isn't always fun because you learned the lesson. And you learned it the hard way. Listen, I'm not saying that I'm hoping that all of your goals and aspirations are difficult to reach, but they might be, especially if you're like dreaming big. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be difficult, and it's going to be challenging. But everything you want, or at least in regards to this specific goal, I can't imagine you put all your eggs and ideas of happiness into one specific area. But everything you want is on the other side of that difficulty. It's on the other side of the challenge. So yeah, try to find joy in the process. But on the days you can't, and there will be days you can't, show up with as much energy as you can, so you've kept that commitment to yourself, that you've shown up. I think that's a new belief of mine. Commitments and promises you keep to yourself are more important than commitments and promises you keep to others. This is not to say that those commitments and promises don't include others, absolutely, but yeah, commit to yourself first. Decide who you want to be, and you might not be that person, but you will be if you keep trying. I heard a cool quote today. The idea of practicing what you preach. And if like I'm making these videos and I put it on YouTube, if somebody ever asks me, it's like, oh, are you always that way all the time? It's like, no, I'm not always productive all the time. I do get frustrated. I do fall into comparison. I do fall into self-doubt. And then I remember these things I'm telling myself, as well as this camera, and then I pull myself out of it. And that's what practice is, because practice what you preach. The key word in that phrase is practice. It's not always going to be perfect. It's going to be hard. You're going to stumble. You might cheat on that diet that one day, and then the next day you try again. As long as the days you win and the days you show up are more than the days you don't, and that number generally keeps going up, or at least the quality of the output of the work that you do on those days you show up keeps going up, great. Making progress. Yeah. And sometimes you need a reminder as to, that's, at the end of the day, that's what progress looks like. This is the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I say every time, everything I'm telling this camera is things I'm telling to myself. Until next time, take it easy.